Hello, my name is Karen Jernigan. It's Wednesday, November the 3rd, 2021, and we are here in Salinas to have a conversation with Tom Pettitt about his roots in the Salinas Valley and King City. We are doing this on behalf of the San Antonio Valley Historical Association. So first, I'm going to ask Tom to say for us his full name and spell it for us. So Tom.
It's T-O-M or Thomas, T-H-O-M-A-S, Hamilton, H-A-M-I-L-T-O-N, Pettitt, P-E-T-T-I-T-T.
Great. So now I know that the H for your middle initial is actually your mother's maiden name.
My mother's maiden name.
Wonderful. I want to make sure we have permission to use this recording to educate people about history. So, Tom, do we have your permission to share this information with others interested in history?
Yes.
Thank you. We are conducting this interview at 22554 Oak Canyon Road near Salinas, just west of River Road, in the home of Tom and Terry Pettitt, south of Highway 68. In the room with us is videographer John Jernigan and Tom's wife, Terry, who has come to listen. So we're going to start with our first questions. Tom, what is the date of your birth?
7/29/37.
And so that makes you right now age
84.
And where were you born?
I was born in San Francisco. The doctor was Dr. Pettitt, P-E-T-I-T, and the nurse was Myrtle Combs. And in my baby book, it shows my first trip was back to King City from San Francisco. And my mother, for years, I can remember, kept in contact with the nurse, Myrtle Combs.
And so that was were you born in a hospital in San Francisco?
Yes, I was, but I don't remember the hospital.
Okay, and so you you were probably in a car as opposed to a train, or do you know? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and she was there for 7 days.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that was 37 was kind of the height of the Depression, so that was challenging time in the life of the United States. How long did you live in King City?
Well, I lived in King City most of my life, and just recently moved over here in Salinas, and we have a home in Clovis also.
Okay. So from 1937 until basically when were you in King City?
Probably 95.
1995. Okay. All right. And then you've been here in Salinas and Clovis since then. Okay. All right. Okay, so your roots in King City go back to Louis King, the brother of the city founder Charles King. And Louis King was your great-grandfather.
Yes.
So let's talk about the ancestors that came before you. So who were your parents and their full names?
On my grandmother King's side, it was W.C. Hamilton and Birdie J. Hamilton.
Okay.
And in my dad's side, it was James V. Pettitt and Helen H. Pettitt.
Okay. So Helen and Jim were your parents.
Correct.
And so your mother was a Hamilton. And do you know what nationality that was, the Hamilton family?
No, I don't.
Do you know what nationality the Pettitt family was?
Well, it's got some Swiss in it.
Swiss, okay.
And I think a little French.
Okay. All right. So one of the things that I think is so makes you so unique is that both sides of your family have some pretty distinct connections to early King City. So I want to talk about your Pettitt family, but I want to start by talking about your Hamilton roots through your mother. So your grandparents, William C. Hamilton and Birdie Jeanette Hamilton, what do you know about them?
Well, obviously, I never knew my grandfather. And Birdie, I can remember when I was young, would stay there, especially on weekends, because we lived out in the country, and I didn't have a place to ride my bike. So I keep my bike at my grandmother's, and I can always remember going to the Real Joy Theater on Saturday afternoons, and coming back to my grandmother's, Birdie's house. And it was always, she played the piano. And I can remember sitting next to her on the piano stool while she played. And I never remember seeing any music with her.
Uh-huh.
And the way she played the piano, it just was amazing. And I'd spend a lot of evenings with her as she played the piano.
I think I read that she played the piano or the organ at the St. Mark's Church and for some civic events.
And at the Rancho Theater too.
Oh.
And funerals, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So when you talk about the house in King City, are you talking about the what we know as the Carriage House Inn on Lynn Street?
Yes. I don't remember the address. 416 Lynn? No.
Yes.
But anyways, yeah, the Carriage House, yeah.
So now it's the Carriage House.
Yeah.
But so you said you didn't know William C. Your grandfather.
Right.
Because he died like in the early 30s or the late 20s.
Yeah,
so
see,
that
I
was
wasn't even
before
born.
before you were born.
Right.
But Birdie was still around.
Oh, yes.
And I know both your grandparents were very involved in the community. What stories or information do you know about William C. Hamilton?
You know, unfortunately, I don't.
Okay.
Unfortunately, you know, when you're that age, you don't ask those kind of questions.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So
I do have a picture there of William C. Hamilton harness and saddles. And when we read old documents about the start of King City, there's mention of W.C. Hamilton and his harness shop. And it was, to my understanding, located on the corner of 3rd and Broadway. And it says that he was one of the first people in King City after it was founded in 1886. Are those the stories you've heard?
Well, that's what I've read, actually.
Mm-hmm,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it was supposed to be they were the first people married in King City?
Yes, and we actually have the registry from 1889 showing their marriage at in the documents of St. Mark's Episcopal Church. And it was one of the first. I don't know if it was the first, but it was one of the first, in 1889. And it was pretty fun to find their signatures. And it said she was 17, Birdie was 17, and he was 30 years old. But what makes Birdie and William so significant is that Birdie was the daughter of Louis King, and who was the brother of Charles King. So what have you heard about the story about how Birdie got to King City?
Well, what I understand is that her mother died, and Louis, and they had, and my grandmother had 4 other siblings, and Louis came west, and then my grandmother came west at a later date, and then he went back. Not sure if it's Philadelphia, or not sure. Is that
Pennsylvania,
Pennsylvania?
somewhere. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And married his wife's sister, and some of the other children came back with him. So.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, John and I, when we give tours of the cemetery, we love to go to the tombstone of Lewis King, who was the brother of Charles King, because he has each of his wives are listed and on his tombstone. So after his first wife died, which would have been your great grandmother,
yeah,
Fanny. After Fanny died, to come all the way from the East Coast to the West Coast to work on the King Ranch that his brother had bought. Charles King bought the King Ranch in 1884. And it's my understanding that Charles King was from Oakland and really spent most of his time in Oakland. He needed somebody to run his ranch. And so when Lewis came and brought his family, that provided a means for him to keep an eye on things, and was someone that he trusted. And the fact that his children came, Birdie and her siblings, and then Birdie meets William Hamilton, the harness maker, really means that your roots go back to the very beginning of King City. I think that's
amazing.
really special.
Amazing.
It really is.
Amazing.
And over the years, there's been some confusion. I remember when I first started researching about your family, that there was another William Hamilton, a William J. Hamilton, that actually lived in King City at almost exactly the same time as your grandfather. And so do you remember hearing those stories about people getting confused that William J. Hamilton, who happened to be the uncle to John Steinbeck, the author, his father's name was so similar to your grandfather's name?
Yeah. No, I didn't realize that, but over the years, trying to explain to people and how confusing, you make sure it's W.C. was my grandfather. So
right, we've kind of had fun looking through old census records and even kind of early telephone directories, and right there will be William J. Hamilton and William C. Hamilton. And what really clued us off is that they were two different people, was that your grandfather is buried in the King City Cemetery, and William J. Hamilton, Steinbeck's uncle, is buried here in Salinas near the Steinbeck relatives. And but it's an easy mistake to make because all it is one initial.
Yeah.
And they were active in a lot of the Chamber of Commerce. They were on the same committees, and so you often saw their names together, but apparently different family. So, let's see. What do you remember about your parents, Jim and Helen Pettitt?
Well, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and she was active in the community. She was active on the library board just like her mother was, and she was active in St. Mark's Church and played the organ just like her mother was. And she was active with the Pink Ladies, very active just like her mother in Eastern Star and Rainbow. And she was my chauffeur when I was in primary school to do all my different sports events and 4-H and all those kind of activities. And she was just a good mom.
And she was a mom to you and to your sister?
My sister Nancy, yeah.
Sister Nancy?
Yeah.
Was she older or younger?
She's older. She was 4 years older than I was.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
And your dad, what do you remember about him?
Well, he's Mr. King City to me. He Chamber of Commerce made him Citizen of the Year 1 year. He was active in the Masonic Lodge. He was on the Salinas Valley Fair Board for 27 years and served as their president. He was active with the King City Stampede. Probably the two, in my opinion, the two greatest things that his accomplishments were the Monterey County supervisors made him the acquisition to purchase all the land for the San Antonio and Lake Naspiano lakes.
Oh.
And along with then the engineer was Loring Bunny, and out of San Lucas, and the pair of them put together going out and talking to people to buy their land to put the two dams. The other accomplishment that I thought was great was he was a fundraiser for the Me Memorial Hospital. And I can remember just getting out of college, going with him to we went to San Jose, and he would go to the hospitals and ask them how they got their financing, how they do that. I remember going to Visalia and San Luis Obispo. And then, of course, my dad met with George and Myrtle Me, and they donated their registered herd as a kickoff for the fundraising for Me Memorial. So I thought that was a great accomplishment.
Well, it's something that affected a lot of people over the years to have that hospital in our community.
Yeah, he's.
So what about your dad's profession or occupation?
My dad started he went to, where did he go? Not sure if he went to, it seemed like he went to college. But his first job was with the Bank of Italy. And Jean Rianda was then in charge of the bank there. And then and then my grandfather started the real estate insurance business, and then he started Pettitt Lands, and he then went and worked as a real estate and insurance.
Both those jobs put him right in the heart of downtown King City, I would think, because the Bank of Italy was on the corner of Broadway and 3rd.
Yeah.
The south.
The Vanguard.
Yeah, the Vanguard building. It
Vanguard
looks like a
building.
bank building, yes. And it started off as First National and then became Bank of Italy and then Bank of America. But then the real estate and insurance business, when I knew it, was mostly at 333 Broadway, on the corner of Broadway and Vanderhurst.
Right. They did, I can remember the middle block of the 200 block. And I can't remember who was next door. But I can remember when they moved to the 333 Broadway that my dad actually, the safe, he actually rolled it down the street. I don't know why I remember that.
Well, I think that would be kind of memorable because Broadway was Highway 101,
yes,
probably one about that time. And
yeah, it was. It was, yeah. But I can remember that, following him down the street, rolling that thing.
Yeah, well, you do what you have to do, huh? So his father, who was Tom Pettitt, was the one that started so
Yes.
that must be your namesake. And
Yes.
we've talked about that very often names in families skipped a generation. So you're a Tom Pettitt. Your father was a Jim. Or a James Pettitt.
Yes.
And then his father was a Tom. Do they call him Tom or do they call him Thomas?
Tom.
Okay, Tom. And then Tom's father was a James
yeah.
too.
Yeah, with Jim, Tom, Jim, Tom, Jim, Tom. All the way back to Tennessee.
Well, maybe this would be a good time to jump to the Pettitt side of the family, because I think it's almost as interesting, or maybe more interesting, than the Hamilton side of the family, because your grandfather, Tom Pettitt, who was your namesake. I saw him listed as a rancher, an undertaker, a furniture dealer, a politician, and an insurance agent. Does that accurately describe what you know?
Did it mention Western Life? Would that be insurance?
An insurance, an
He was a
insurance
sales-
agent.
Yeah, sales for Western Life. Yeah.
So, what do you know about Thomas Pettitt, your grandfather?
Oh, he was a mover and a shaker.
It's what I think. You're right. In what way?
Well, if you walk into a room with him, when he walked out, he knew everybody. He never walked by somebody without saying hello. He had a great knack of saying hello to somebody and shaking their hand, and I kind of picked that up. He when I was really young, I guess I did 4-H, and he would help me because I kept my animal there at the ranch, and he'd help me how to show it and how to groom it. He's fairly kind of a quiet guy around me, but when you get him out there with the public, he was almost like a politician. He'd make sure he'd shake hands with everybody, and he was just a big, huge man. His huge hands and but kind of quiet kind of guy that I can remember not laughing a lot or yelling at me, but he because I can remember him riding horses and kind of showing me how to ride a horse. In fact, he's probably the first person that gave me any kind of lessons or encouraged me to ride, because he loved to ride. That's kind of how I remember.
So you had a chance to get to know your Pettitt grandfather, whereas your Hamilton grandfather was gone before you were born.
I got to know him for quite a while.
So let's go back to see if you can tell us. I heard you mention Tennessee. Did you say that's where your Pettitt roots came from?
Well, that's as far back as I can see, where my dad kept records, and he would go back to Tennessee and talk to people. And I saw phone books that he took pictures of, and there's a whole ton of Pettitts back there, and some with, most of them with 4 T's. So that's, as far as I know, that's in the Civil War, where they fought for the North. And I have some records where one James Pettitt was wounded during the war. So that's as far back as I can go with.
So then something happened shortly after the Civil War where your great-grandfather, James Pettitt, came to California. Do you know anything about that?
Not really. Seemed like he came into the Hollister area.
Yes, I read that.
And did some mining. And then they moved to San Jose, seems. And then my grandfather moved to Greenfield and homesteaded. And
now, when you say Greenfield, do you mean Greenfield or do you mean Aurora Seco? Because I saw a connection to
Arroyo Seco.
And so that was a homestead in Aurora Seco.
Yeah, homestead.
Where was it in Aurora Seco? Can you be more specific?
It was up a Release Canyon.
Okay.
That's as far as I can go.
Okay.
There's a mountain called Pettitt Peak or Pettitt Mountain.
Really?
It's on some topo maps.
Okay. We'll have to watch for that. I did see that I saw one reference to Tom Pettitt getting his first job on the King Ranch.
Yeah, yes. I read that someplace too, where that was his first job. Mm-hmm. Besides all the other ones he had.
Yeah, exactly, along the way.
But he did obviously, like I said, he's a mover and a shaker, And when he was with Western Life Insurance, he was one of their top money, or top
Sales.
agents,
Okay.
top agents for the state of California.
Wow.
And I have a little plaque that says that he was in the top, whatever they called their top people then, and where he went down to San Diego to receive that.
So obviously, I also saw reference to the fact that he helped build the Page Motel Page Hotel in Greenfield. Do you know anything about the Page Hotel?
Yeah, no,
I don't.
That surprised me too, because I don't know.
Okay.
And of course, the Masonic Lodge in King City.
The Masonic Lodge in King City, when it was dedicated in February of 1929, got rave reviews for being one of the most beautiful buildings in this part of the state.
Yeah.
It has a very interesting facade.
And then where Tavernades Insurance is now. And I can remember when I was a kid where it was the Topo Hotel. And my grandparents ran the hotel, and he had a display of gun cases. And I just don't know whatever happened to them, but it was quite a display. But I can remember just running around there, running up the stairs, and the El Topo Hotel.
So your grandmother, her name was Edith?
Edith, huh?
And her maiden name was?
Vanoni.
Vanoni.
We called her Doni.
Doni. And she was from that area? They met it said 1903 in one of the documents that I read. Do you know how they met, or?
Oh, no. It seemed like I did, but I no.
And then it also said that your grandfather Tom Pettitt bought and sold livery stables. And there's a picture on the 100 block of Broadway that has his name on the top of it. They call it ghost writing because the writing is kind of faded, but you can still read that it says Tom Pettitt up there. And it was a livery stable.
I don't know if he bought and sold, but I know he had livery stables, and of course in those days, especially we had one in Soledad, and then he had the mortuaries in Soledad and King City, and he'd have his carriage and horse-drawn carriages and go back and forth.
There was a great article in the book Salt of the Earth that I was reading this morning at 4 this morning when I was awake, that was an interview with your grandfather, Tom Pettitt. And it talked about his work in the livery stables and that and how he became basically an undertaker or a mortician because he had the horses and he was helping out the coroner, and the coroner said he would teach him how to do that so that he didn't have to drive all the way from Monterey. So there was references to your grandfather being involved with the Spanish flu, that he had gotten the Spanish flu.
Yeah, he did get the Spanish flu because he was handling so many people. I do have his plaque that showed him the certificate of him in the embalming certification, showing Thomas Benjamin, and we have that hanging someplace. In Clovis, in Clovis.
Well, during that time, I mean, it's ironic right now, we've just been going through a COVID-19 flu epidemic, but 100 years ago, your grandfather was obviously involved in taking care of a lot of people who suffered from the Spanish flu. I think but it certainly would have been a different lifestyle when you had to pick people up in on horses
Right.
or in
Carriage
carts
and lots of people.
what did you? Yeah, it sounded like it.
Yeah, I read where there's just a lot of people that just so.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing that I learned from reading about your father was that in the mortician business often went hand in hand with the furniture business.
Yeah. Yeah, he said he could build coffins, so might as well be in the furniture business.
Yeah, that was the first time I became aware of that,
Yeah.
and it's kind of a common thing.
Yeah, to him,
people that.
like I say, he was a mover and a shaker. He didn't want nothing to get behind him.
And the one mortuary, I think, was kind of where the furniture store is now, on the 400 block of Broadway, across from the Masonic Lodge. Is that right? Am I right about that?
That's what my impression was.
And then it's like right across the street. He said, "Well, I'm going to build this Masonic Lodge," and he built it with retail underneath and the lodge up above, so that it was able to basically finance the building for many, many years. It's still being used, and it's a fixture in downtown King City. Have you been upstairs, obviously, in the Masonic Lodge?
I am a member.
Okay, you're a member of the King City Masonic Lodge?
Yes, I am.
That's like stepping into the past, isn't it, to go up there?
Yeah.
It's pretty incredible building, that is. So, so can you tell us a little bit about the Pine Canyon Ranch? Was that your grandfather Pettitt that bought that, or was that your father?
No, my grandfather bought the ranch.
Okay.
It was 1,200 acres.
Okay.
And they had the main house, and then they had a guest house, and then on top of the hill was where I lived when I was young, and because I knew when my grandfather died, well, even before my grandfather died, they would cook in the main house, but they slept in the guest house. And I never did ask them why, but that was I don't know why. And then when my grandfather died, and I was back from college or even in high school, we'd go out there to see my grandmother, and she'd have the living room shut off. So everything was done in the kitchen. And we'd always make fun of, well, she's not home, let's go in the living room. And even my cousins, David and Leonard Tavernier, we got in on that a couple of times, where we would find out, and it was just, the living room was just full of furniture and everything. She'd just keep the door shut. So we'd always, when she wasn't around, we'd go and
check it out. Can you describe exactly where the ranch was? I mean, if you go over the King City Bridge and head up Pine Canyon.
Yeah, once you start up Pine Canyon, on your right is the farming grounds for Salinas Land Company.
Okay.
And then before you make the turn, they call it Pettitt Road. You turn right at the top end of the fields.
Okay.
And it's everything on your left.
Okay. All right. And I did have a very, very fond memory when I first came to town in 1977. Shortly after that, your father took me for a ride up that canyon. I was new to town, didn't know much about King City, and he was my neighbor. I lived next door to him. He and your mom lived on North Mildred.
Right.
And what was the address of that place?
316 North Mildred?
316, and I was renting a room at 306 North Mildred. And so he was my neighbor, and I was interested to know about the area, and so he offered to take me for a drive up there, and because I was 21, at the time.
Up the canyon.
Up the canyon, and so he took me up there. It's an incredible view of down into the valley, and I'll never forget that. That was very nice of him to introduce me to the Salinas Valley.
Yeah, he liked to do things like that.
Yeah, he did. So that was really great. So your dad, I saw he graduated from high school in King City. I think it said 1923. Does that sound right?
That sounds right. And my mother, too.
Did she graduate the same year?
They were classmates.
Oh, okay.
And her brother, Bob Hamilton.
Oh, same year, huh?
Well, no, Bob was either 1 year or 2 years behind her.
Okay. So they obviously knew each other then.
Yes.
Did they ever talk to you about their experience at King City High School, or?
No, I just have the yearbook, and I
Okay, you see their pictures?
see their pictures, and they'd call my dad, what do they call him? Pee-wee? he was huge. He was tall then.
Guy.
Yeah, because when you have pictures of him on the basketball team, he was one of the tallest. And football and track. And so the only thing I know about it is what I read in the yearbook. So. But yeah, they were sweethearts then.
Do you know what year they got married?
They were married in Santa Rosa. I know that.
Married in Santa Rosa.
But
okay.
no, I don't remember it off the top of my head.
Okay, so your dad and mom graduated from King City High School. You graduated from King City High School?
Yes, I did.
And what year was that?
56.
1956 grad. And do you have some memories of King City High School that you think about when you think back to that time?
Well, probably, if I go back and think that sports was my big thing in high school. And it was kind of interesting. I played basketball, and of course I ran track, and my mother wouldn't go to the basketball games. It made her nervous that I would get hurt, and I can remember telling her, "Don't worry, I don't go in underneath the basket. I stay on the outside." And she wouldn't go to the track meet. She went one time to film me, and she tried to film. It was just shaking so bad. So it just made her nervous. But I had a great career in track at high school. Before they went to meters, I held the 50-yard dash, and the 75, the 150, and in varsity the 100 and 220 until they went over to meters. And then I was fortunate enough to place at the state meet, third place in the state meet, state of California. So that probably was not anything to do with education, but it was great memories for me to be able to have that kind of.
So, did you have some favorite teachers, or do you remember the principal or the superintendent?
Well, the assistant was Ed Fisher.
Oh, okay. He was the assistant?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And
I'm drawing a blank.
Any particular teachers? Do you remember any?
Oh, yeah. Bill Pitcher was my basketball and track coach.
Okay, all right. And then how about classmates? Did you have some kids that you hung around with? Or?
Well, we kind of grouped up type of thing.
Uh-huh.
But I ran a lot around with Jerry Rava.
Okay.
And then probably my closest friend and partner, Larry Holman.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We were, our ranches almost touched each other.
Right.
And he was a year behind me.
Okay.
So in grammar school, we started roping together. And we started calling each other partner. And to this day, we still call each other partner. And we roped all through high school, and actually we did very well. We did very well roping. And we did a lot of double dating.
Yeah, I still know Larry.
which is quite a story. But we did very well roping together.
And when you say roping, were you part of the fair? Or were you part of a circuit? Or
we were fortunate. My dad and his dad Tony always made sure that we we had a place to rope and steers. And we'd rope junior rodeos. My dad and his dad put on ropings on Wednesday after school, and then on Sundays at the Stampede grounds. So those are the kind of ropings. And there was ropings over in Kalinga and up around San Jose that we'd go to.
So what did you do after high school?
Well, I went to Arizona State University
Okay.
in Tempe, Arizona.
Okay.
Got a degree in agriculture, and I also was commissioned through ROTC as a first lieutenant, and in the Transportation Corps. And right after college, I went into the service, and then after the tour of the service, then I came home into the family business.
So what branch of the service were you in?
The Army.
And what years were that?
61
Okay.
to 62, two or three, 62.
Okay.
63, something like that.
Okay, so the early 60s. Okay, and then the family business was the Pettitt Lands?
It was Pettitt Lands.
Mm-hmm. And so what did you do for Pettitt Lands?
I was strictly real estate, and then my dad was doing a little bit of appraising,
Mm-hmm.
and he started showing me how to do appraisals. Then his dear friend up here in Salinas, Joe Paini,
Mm-hmm.
was active in appraising, and I went to I worked for him occasionally. He would call me and say that he had a couple of jobs, and would I help him, and
Mm-hmm.
so I go up here in Salinas to help him, and
Mm-hmm.
then my dad kept getting jobs and turning them over to me, so
Mm-hmm.
I eventually just mostly did appraisal work all my life,
Mm-hmm.
with occasional real estate.
So was it mostly residential or commercial or both?
It was, to start out with, it was mostly residential
Okay.
with bits and pieces of commercial and ag.
Mm-hmm.
And then as years go on, I stayed with single family and with anything ag, like cattle ranches,
Mm-hmm.
row crops, or vineyards.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't do any commercial,
Mm.
or tried to stay away from it.
So if you started after you got out of the service, you spent a lot of years in business in King City. I'm trying to figure
40.
out how many years that was.
40 years or so?
40 years, wow. So was all of it pretty much at that 333 Broadway location? Because part of the
Yeah.
time then you went to Butchwright, Pettitt, and Davis, right?
Right, I moved over when my dad retired, and I'm guessing the early 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I moved over to, then was Morga and Butchwright.
Okay.
And then it became Morga, Butchwright, and Pettitt.
Mm-hmm.
Then it became Butchwright, Pettitt, and Davis. Morga took a upper level job of insurance.
Uh-huh. That's pretty typical of how businesses evolve.
Yeah, it is.
They don't always stay the same.
No.
So how would you describe your 40 years in business in King City? Is it generally a positive experience or a lot of frustration? Or
No, it was a great experience. It gave me an opportunity to see a lot of people, help a lot of people get loans, see a lot of country. And with ag, I got to go on a lot of ranches and farming ground, and I met a lot of just great people. So it was positive, and it still is positive.
Okay, I think we're going to take a little break, and then we'll come back and finish up with a few other subjects. Okay, Tom, the next thing I want to ask you about is your family life and when you got married and your children. And so can you give me a little synopsis of that?
Okay. I graduated from Arizona State in '60. Got my commission as the first lieutenant the same day as I got graduated.
Okay.
And a week later, I got married to, her name was Beverly Trussell. She was from Globe, Arizona.
Okay.
And then I went back to Fort Eustis, Virginia, for my training as in the Transportation Corps. Then of course, once I got out of the school, my orders was to come back. It was called Fort Mason in San Francisco. It was a place where foreign officers would come and stay while they were at different language schools in California. And then she would stay. We had a rental in King City, and she'd stay there, and I would go during the week. I'd go up to Fort Mason, and most weekends I had off. So then we had two girls, Lena Vaughn Pettitt and Ann Margaret Pettitt.
And so when were your children born? Lena was born in the 60s?
Both were born in the 60s.
Okay.
They're 4 years apart.
Okay.
I won, 64, someplace in there.
Okay, so and Lena, where does she live now?
She lives in Fresno.
Okay. And did she go to King City High School?
Both girls went to King City High School.
Okay, all right.
Oh, yeah.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
And graduated from there?
And graduated.
Wow, okay. So that was 3 generations that graduated from King City High School. Mm-hmm. Okay, and then Lena moved to Fresno. She married and...
Lena went to Fresno State, and then she married. Mm-hmm. And she has a daughter, Vivian, that's a senior at Clovis North High.
Okay. And did Lena work, or was she
she's a teacher.
A teacher, like an elementary school teacher?
4th grade.
4th grade, okay. And how about Ann Margaret?
Ann Margaret graduated and went to Hartnell.
Okay.
And then she took a job with Cisco, and she was married, and she had a son and twins.
Oh, wow.
The oldest son, Dakota, and the twins was Corbin.
And so you are the grandfather of 4 children. Is that right?
Right. 1, 2.
Lena has 1 daughter, and Ann has 3 children. Is that right?
Right.
Okay. And where does Ann live now?
Ann lives in Fresno.
Oh, okay. So both your girls
and
are over there.
She's not married, but she's in the school system.
Okay.
The twins was Corbin and Chloe, so I don't know if I mentioned Chloe. So.
Uh-huh.
And they're up in age. Dakota's 26 and the twins are 22.
It's interesting how that happens, isn't it? They grow up.
Yeah.
So, okay, so that's your family. So when you are at your house in Clovis, then you get to see your family that's over there. Is that right?
Right. We have a total of 6 grandkids.
Okay.
Terry has 2 boys,
Okay.
Mike and Garrett. Mike's not married, but Garrett's married and has a son that just turned 8, Braden, and Adeline is 3.
So between the two
Two
of
of
you,
us,
you
we
have
have
six grandchildren. And so let's talk a little bit about Terry. How did you two meet?
My father had a stroke, and they transferred him up to Salinas Valley Memorial Hospital. And in order for my mother to see my dad, every afternoon, I would get some of my work put together and put it in my briefcase. And I would take her up to Salinas Valley Memorial Hospital so she could sit with my dad during the afternoon. And so I would get a chair and I would kind of move it more towards the door so I could just watch people moving back and forth to give me something to do besides work. And Terry was a pharmacist, and she would quite often come by pulling one of those carts, and we'd smile at each other.
Mm-hmm.
And she was then assigned to my dad's as one of her patients for nutrition. And then that's how we got started talking.
Mm-hmm.
And 35 years later, here we are.
So what was your marriage date? Do you remember? Or I can ask Terry that.
No. June 24, 1995.
1995. So I have to help my husband on a regular basis when our wedding date was.
Yeah.
So 95. So that was 35 years ago. Wow. Okay.
Well, total time we met each other.
Oh, by the time you met. Okay. Yeah. All right. All right. So let's talk a little bit about your involvement in other activities along the way.
Okay.
I know you've been involved with the California Rodeo.
Yeah, I've been with the California Rodeo for over 50 years. Served as president. Terry's active in the rodeo. She's chairman of a Western Dressage, and I'm active as a past president.
Okay. So what made you get involved in the rodeo? What is it that you like about it?
Well, being around horses all my life. My sister, when she graduated from Washington State, she majored in fashion designs, and she ended up in San Francisco at the Emporium then, and she met Irene Bramers from Salinas, and they became really close friends. And over the years, and then my sister worked at Saks in San Francisco. Then she married my fraternity brother and moved to Phoenix and worked there at Macy's, or Saks, I guess it was. And she has, and she passed away in August of 2004. And she had a son, Jim, and a daughter, Julie. But then the Irene Bramer's husband was active with the rodeo, and of course I got to know them, and so he asked me if I would come and help him. He at that time was track secretary, and that was back in 1965. And so I came to help him, and I never left. I just kept going up the ranks, and it's a great organization. You know, we give over $500,000 back to nonprofit organizations, and mostly in Salinas. And there's 52 directors and over 1,300 committee people that work the show. So.
And it's all in Salinas at the rodeo grounds?
It's all in Salinas at the rodeo grounds.
And it's usually in September each year?
It's in July.
Oh, in July each year. It was in September.
Yeah, because of COVID. So
because of COVID.
Third
okay.
Thursday in July.
Okay. And what keeps you going back to that kind of volunteer work are the people that you've met? Or
Gosh, they're like family.
Okay.
Yeah, they're just great people. Just like I say, almost like family.
Do you still do writing?
Really not. Terry and I wrote a lot. She was very active with St. SAVHA Memorial Hospital's fundraiser, their trail ride, for some 30 years. And so she was really active. And, since all the kids are in Clovis, and, it's kind of important we go back and forth, and the horses are in. Earl Escobar keeps the horses at the fairgrounds in King City. It gets to be more trying to get down there to ride them, and then we lost one of the horses, so we're down to one, and so we haven't been riding none lately. So
it was just an earlier part of your life.
Yeah. From the get-go.
What other kinds of activities? You mentioned the Salinas Valley Fair. What other?
Yeah, I was on there for 30 years and
okay.
was their president. I served on the Monterey County Grand Jury.
Okay.
I was both the grammar school. I served both the grammar school and high school board of trustee or school board.
That's an
Grammar
important
school
job.
and high school. I was the chairman of the fundraiser to raise money for the new library, which is located in the old Bank of America building.
Oh, in King City.
Yeah,
okay.
Broadway and North Vanderhurst.
In fact, that's where we learn a lot about your family, because there's a microfilm reader that has 120 years of the Rustler in that building, and so there's a lot of references to Pettitts and Hamiltons in that building.
Then I belong to a horse riding group called Rancho Vistadores. It's in May for a week in the Salvangs area.
Okay.
It's huge. It's worldwide. We have people come from Australia, Hawaii, Mexico City. A lot of Texans come on this ride. I think there's 34 states that have people come. There's 500 members. There's 1,500 people that are on what we call the waiting list. The whole thing is about 2,300 people for a week at this ranch. We call it the Janeway Ranch. And it's trail riding, it's roping, it's skeet shooting, it's bocce balls, team penning, calf branding, cutting, eating. Everybody eats a lot, drinking.
So that's been an important part of your life.
It has. I met some wonderful people in my camp from all over, mostly California, Texas, and Nevada. But you just met. President Reagan was a member of the Rancho Vistadores. So you just meet a lot of nice people. So once a year. It's a very impressive type of. Yeah. Then they have a couples ride in October, which Terry and I have been doing for over 20 years. And our camp was responsible for the horseshoe tournament, which Terry chairman for so many years, and that was another nice thing. Got to meet spouses and significant others. So, yeah, we've met a lot of nice people. And so we have some really nice true friends from there.
Well, before we conclude, I want to see if I can take you back to the earliest memories that you have of King City when you were a young boy, maybe when you were in high school. And I just would kind of like to walk down the main street of King City with you and see if there's some things that you remember, basically starting at the railroad tracks, because that's how King City got started.
Yeah, you're right.
The train came there.
Facing west was the El Camino
Hotel.
Hotel.
Okay, on the right, yeah, or on the north
right.
side, yeah.
And on the left was that service station and I guess it might be kind of a restaurant and a tire shop. I can remember Sylvester's Studebaker dealership on the right.
Kind of where the El Camino garage was, or was it the El Camino garage then?
No, it was, yeah, that's where it was.
Okay.
That's where it was, yeah.
Okay. I don't. Mr. Sylvester was there, huh? You remember that?
Studebakers.
Yeah, he did have Studebakers.
Yeah, I bought a pickup
have
from
a
him.
picture of him though down by where the.
He could have moved, I think.
Okay, so it could have been.
Yeah. See, what else is down that block? There was a bakery. Oh, and the bus depot.
Okay, yes. And was it the Buttercrisp Bakery? Do you remember? That was.
John. Gosh, what was his last name? Yeah, I don't know.
We're really going back a long
yeah.
time, huh?
Melloweiser. John Melloweiser.
He had the bus depot or the bakery?
Yeah, and the bus depot and the bakery are with a little fountain in it or something.
Okay, yeah, I can picture that.
And then on the corner was the service station.
Yeah, was it Sori's Shell?
I think it was, I don't want to say Standard for some reason. But I know there was a service station.
Okay, service station. That's at 2nd and Broadway.
Yeah.
Okay. Was there a bar across the street? Like
there was. Oh gosh. What
like
was the name?
Stockman's or Nina's Cantina, or was it have a different name then?
Probably Nina's Cafe. It seemed like there was
Cantina?
one. Yeah, it seemed like there was one other thing, but yeah, there was a bar there.
I'm wondering if John Jernigan remembers that.
Was it the Black Cat?
Remember the Black Cat?
Which one did Jim Lynn have next to the Kiefer's?
Topo.
No.
I mean, the Top Hat.
Top Hat.
Top Hat.
Top
Okay,
Hat.
Black Cat, Top Hat.
Blackjack and black. Yeah.
It's easy to get
Yeah,
those mixed up. Okay, so we're on the 100 block. Yeah, there was pretty much a bar in that.
Yeah, there was a
one.
bar. Yeah, there was a bar.
Okay. And then.
And going to the next block, I can remember Tootsie's.
Okay. Tootsie's was there then, huh? You always remember that? It's been there a long time.
It has.
Tootsie's Stampede.
On that's a 200 block.
Yes, 200 block.
So I can remember Bolton's Jewelry,
Okay.
Carl Lopez's grocery store, The Real Joy.
Yes.
R.M. Hall Salary was on Broadway then.
Oh, really? By the Real Joy or
In
across the street?
No, the same side of the street.
Same side. Okay. R.M. Hall Saddlery. Okay.
Oh, and Bud Fraser's liquor store was on that block.
Okay.
And the Mercantile?
On the corner?
No, it seemed like it was, well, could have been on the corner. Mercantile, yeah.
Okay.
Jack Turner's Chevrolet was where that grocery store is now. I don't know what they call it now.
Oh, yes. It was El Pueblo. Well, right now it's El Pueblo Market,
Yep.
but it was Fairway.
Right, and before Fairway,
And before Fairway, it was, what did you call it?
it was Jack Turner Chevrolet.
Oh, wow.
That's where I bought my first car to take back to Arizona. Can't remember what was an A1 Market.
Yeah, there was an A1 Market.
And then, and of course, then my dad's insurance office.
But in between A1 Market and,
there was something else there.
Yeah, there was it Johnson Motors?
No,
No, that would have been a different era.
Five and Dime
Five and Dime, okay.
and Western Auto.
Oh, Western Auto.
oh yeah, that's right. Schum.
Oh, Emil Schoen?
Emil Schoen.
Did he run it?
I think so.
And Harry Casey ran it too for a while.
Then across the street was a service station right on the corner.
Yes.
And then Winslow's.
Mm-hmm.
Winslow's. He was a night doctor.
Optometrist. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then Kiefer's.
Yes, Kiefer's
And then
Restaurant.
Top Hat.
The bar, yes.
The bar.
And that was in the Vendome Hotel, I
Yes,
think.
in the Vendome.
Okay, all right.
There was the Fountain, Platts, Ray
Yeah.
Platts,
Mm-hmm. R&R.
R&R.
Mm-hmm.
Then Bolton, I think.
Okay. The jeweler.
Jeweler. The shoe store.
Was it Daly's? Daly's?
Yeah, Daly's shoe store.
Uh-huh.
And the Freeman's.
Yes. You have a good memory. Good memory.
What's after that? Going back towards the railroad tracks.
Mm-hmm.
What was on the corner?
In that year, it would have been 80 and H.
Okay.
Oh, the hardware store.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
And going the other way was Tavern 80 Auto.
Oh, if you're headed farther down,
yeah,
like now,
going-
like on the 400
400
block.
block. There was
Okay, all right.
Tavern 80's Motors, which was
Okay.
Leroy Tavernetti.
And was he related to you?
He was he's Ellis Tavernetti's brother,
Okay.
and Ellis's mother and my dad's mother were sisters.
Okay, so you
So Edith Pettit and Rose Tavernetti were sisters.
were. Okay, all right.
Uh,
And Ellis Tavernetti was a partner with your father,
With my
right?
dad, yeah.
Okay.
and there was the furniture store of Watson's,
Yes, across the street on the north side.
and of course
yes.
the lodge.
And was it Bank of America when across the street from Tavernetti Motors when you were growing up? Maybe not.
Yeah, I think so. It seemed like, yeah.
Okay.
And I can remember the men's store. What was his name?
Dick Bruins?
I guess it was Dick Bruins.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Because, yeah. Now I'm getting lost as you keep going.
Yeah, you're getting close. And then across the street is the Masonic Lodge.
Yeah.
And so that you have ties to. And Bertelli's, was that?
Yeah.
Bertelli's there for a long time?
Yeah,
when
the
you were
Patelis was there.
Mhm.
The Cleaners, Rosario.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And that was on the corner.
Yes.
Going the next block.
Would have been the 500 block. And
Yeah.
Wells Fargo Bank, was it on the corner then?
I think
or-
so.
Okay.
I can't remember what was across.
Well, Chase Bank was built later, I think.
Yeah, no, it wasn't
but,
There was another. No, I don't know now.
And was a CHP there? There's a building
Oh, that's
there.
where the CHP. Yeah, that's right. The CHP was there, and it's I don't know what it is now, but that wasn't on the corner.
No, that was, mid-block.
Mid-block.
Yeah, it's Moya's Beauty Shop now.
Okay.
And next to it were two then little houses. Do you
Right.
remember
Well,
those houses?
yeah. Rudy Rich. I know lived in one of them, or maybe, and I don't know about the other one. And then they went commercial.
Right. Soul Treasures is in one of them, and
Yeah.
Pete Anderson has his
the other
office
one,
in the
yeah.
other.
And then the tire shop, Vince Whitney. Yeah, Vince Whitney.
It's still a tire shop,
Yeah.
but yeah, Vince Whitney owned it then.
And going the other block. I don't know what before Lynn's. I'm not sure. If there was something else there before Lynn. Yeah, they got it. Must have been. There's the what do they call it? The Pioneer, or there was
Pioneer Hacienda?
Hacienda.
So the hospital, was it the hospital then? The Pioneer Hacienda was
It was the
before.
hospital.
It was
the
the
hospital.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, it was a hospital.
And that's on the north side of the 600
Yeah.
block of Broadway. It's the Broadway Plaza now.
Yeah, and I don't remember, except I do remember. I think the house on the corner of Mildred and Broadway was the Campbell house,
Yes.
and I think they moved it
Yes, they did.
to Dini.
Over by where Didini lived, yeah.
Yeah,
And then it became the Palm Motel.
yeah.
Right.
Virgil Campbell was a friend of my mother's.
Oh.
In fact, they went to school together.
And then you're at the high school.
Yeah.
So when you were young, did you spend a lot of time walking around the town or
Oh, yeah,
riding your bike? Or?
Yeah, it's like I said. We first lived at out the ranch, and my grandparents lived on the main house. So the house that we lived in was called the Hilltop, and I go and ride my bike. So I kept my bike at my grandma's house on Lynn Street, and I would sometimes I'd spend mostly weekends with her, so I could Saturday I'd go to the show, matinee show, and I'd always go into Bob Hall's saddle room, watch him make saddles. Or a group of us would, it's just everybody knew everybody, and we would just walk around town. We always said we could walk around town in a half hour. So. But yeah, we just walked everywhere. It was just convenient.
Your parents ended up building the house on Mildred, is that right?
Right. We moved from the Hilltop to Monte Vista
Oh.
when I was like 6 or 7, and then when I was a freshman, they built the home in North Mildred.
Do you remember them building the house?
I do remember. When you're in 8th grade or high school, those kind of things were kind of the back burner.
Yeah, not as important to have.
So I can remember them, talking about doing this or do that, and watching them kind of go by and watching them being built. But I do remember that it was close enough to school that if I didn't want to eat lunch at school, or I could actually run home, have lunch, and be back. In fact, there's every once in a while I would test the school system, and I let what I know what you call it, the warning bell, where you had like 5 minutes or something between classes. I could hear it ring at our house, and then I'd run and make it to my first class. So
that's one of the advantages of living on North Mildred Avenue. My children had that too.
Yeah. So yeah.
And then your friends, the Tavernettis, lived just down the street too, right?
Well, they lived right across the street from the auditorium.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And then they actually moved to the corner of Monte Vista, and I don't know what that street is.
Reach or Luckett?
I think either one of those two.
Yeah.
Yeah. They lived there for a long time.
So, do you ever remember going to the cemetery? Because the cemetery would have been then on the next block down from the high school.
Well, when my grandfather's funeral, grandfather Tom, my grandmother Birdie, of course my parents and my sister, my uncle Ham, and my uncle Jack, brothers of my mother.
So sometime when there's a tour at the King City Cemetery, we should invite you to be an honored guest because
we need to probably do that again.
it would be wonderful. The cemetery, the King City Cemetery, is beautiful, and it's well kept, and there's over 150 trees, and it's just a really, really lovely place. So that's where I get to visit your ancestors when I go there. So, did you ever have any experiences on the King City Bridge? It's kind of what King City's known for, that bridge that goes over the Salinas River.
Well, growing up, it was 2-lane. You know, even after I graduated and came back and went into business, it was still 2-lane right through town.
Mm-hmm.
And I can remember when we lived at the, I guess we moved, because I was driving, so we were on the North Mildred, but I can remember crossing the bridge and driving down the middle of the bridge, maybe coming back from a date or something like that, and be the only car there. And I don't know why that rings a bell, but yeah, it was a pretty narrow bridge, and so. But I don't remember any wrecks or anything on it. So.
Oh, good. Because Broadway and that bridge was Highway 101, and so you probably, when you worked at 333 Broadway, you probably saw a lot of traffic go by your business.
All the trucks, yeah. And then we just had a little stop sign in the middle of the street, so hopefully that they would stop, we can cross.
Yeah, so you could cross.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So. Okay. Well, is there anything else that you would like to say? I think you've done a great job of remembering some of early King City and talking about the influence of your ancestors.
Yeah. One thing that I can remember when we lived at the Hilltop. You know, I was born in '37, so I was at a young age when the war was going on, and our Hilltop, you overlooked King City and all the lights, and I can remember blackouts, and I can remember looking out the window and just no King City. It was totally dark, and I can remember my mother picking me up from grammar school and going to the El Camino Hotel and going up to an observation tower thing. And she had to write, and I don't remember if there was any kind of communications, but she had to write down every plane that went by. Of course, there wasn't many, but and I don't know if she had to. Obviously, she had to turn it into somebody. And I'd sit up there with her, and every once in a while, I'd point out a plane, and they were mostly private planes in those days going by. And she'd write it down. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah, just King City was a great place to grow up.
Good. Well, thank you very much for your time. And if you think of other things in the future, let's talk again or write them down and save them, because I think future generations need to know what a special place King City was in many ways. So.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.